Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back from lunch. I hope you had a good lunch, but I hope it was not too heavy, and I hope you'll stay awake for this panel session, because we will have a very interesting panel session today on the collaborative work at the Al-Sultan Abdullah Royal Tiger Reserve. Now, I think from this morning, it was very clear that the Tiger Reserve is very unique, it's very ambitious, but it's also very challenging to implement. It's very complex. When you talk about tiger protection, it requires not only protecting tigers, it requires habitat management, it requires ensuring prey availability, it requires also ensuring that communities, the local communities, also benefit from the tiger reserve itself. And for that, we need concerted effort, we need expertise from various organizations, various stakeholders. And today, for this panel session, is really exciting because we're seeing this is no longer just talk. We are already seeing a lot of activities being undertaken at the Royal Tiger Reserve. And with that, we are very lucky today to have with us a panel consisting of Dr. Shahriza. I think everyone has seen his brilliant presentation this morning. Welcome, Dr. Shah, again on the panel. We also have with us Ms. Justine West, the Executive Director of the Habitat Foundation. Please, yes, I like the energy. We also have Ms. Lam Wai Yi, the Country Director of Pantera. Yes, all the famous people here. Dr. John Payne from Bora. And Mr. Dylan Ong from Nature-Based Solutions. Yes. These are all champions who've been in this field for a very long time and rightly recognized as superstars in this field. Okay, we have a very short time, so I'm going to get stuck into it straight away. Really, as I mentioned, this session is really to share what is happening on the ground and how each organization, what roles do they have and how do they actually execute these roles. Again, bearing in mind this is quite a unique arrangement that we have for this Royal Tiger Reserve. Often when we talk about protected areas, it's only perhaps governed under a certain agency or so on and so forth, but this is really an effort which brings together multiple stakeholders. Dr. Shah, you already presented again very nicely about this collaborative effort, but really just describe a bit how Income Management Services, EMS, really manages this huge area and coordinates the effort within the Royal Tiger Reserve. Dr. Shah, please.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll keep it very short because my partners have more to say. So in the landscape of the Royal Tiger Reserve, from the onset, we have decided that no one entity can undertake the job. So we have assembled, so we call it Tiger Assemble. Tiger Rangers assemble the best that has had the experience, the technical knowledge and the capability to actually prepare the site meaning the Tiger Reserve, for operationalization. So each of the partners that we have here has areas of specialization which they will explain themselves, but coming together synergistically is where the magic happens. If any one entity thinks that you can manage such a complex project such as the Tiger Reserve, you are doomed to fail. Collectively, what we are doing is supporting the Pahang State Parks and the Pahang government's commitment after giving such a big area for tiger conservation. This tiger conservation cannot and will not fail. His Royal Highness, the Sultan, has put his name, he put his personal name to the reserve. All of us carry this responsibility in us. We understand that, there's no option for failure. So I just would like to start with that, and I will let the partners, we call all our friends implementing partners, because they implement different kind of initiative within the Tiger Reserve. Thank you, Lord.
Thank Thank you. And with great power comes great responsibilities, and I think this is a lineup of the tiger rangers in Malaysia. Okay, talking about this complexity as mentioned, the tiger reserve is not only essential for preserving the tigers, but also needs to ensure that it benefits the local communities as well. We've heard earlier there's issues in terms of human wildlife conflict and so on and so forth. So I'd like to first turn to Justine. Please share how communities benefit from the Tiger Reserve, and what are some of the community-focused initiatives that is undertaken by Habitat?
Right, good afternoon. Thank you, Dr. Hassan. Okay, so the Habitat Foundation is basically, currently all of us are involved in operationalizing this Al-Sultan Abdullah Tiger Reserve, and this has been made possible through the generous grant from the EU. The Habitat is taking charge of those components that have to do with engaging the local community. It's actually helpful to have the map up if you can pull that slide. A lot of people don't know that we're working in phase 1. There are no communities resident in the Tiger Reserve itself. The Tiger Reserve is very isolated and set apart. But there are communities living in the upper Tembeling River, and there are really 7 main communities, 5 Malay communities, and 2 Orang Asli. Our job is to work with those communities to assess, describe the landscape and their situation, look at some of their socioeconomic needs, and then layer over that assessment of community-based natural resource management approaches, assisting the Taman Negara, the new Taman Negeri Pahang, to basically elaborate rules and regulations which are, I guess, determined jointly with those communities, so that an aspect of their traditional access to the rivers and to the forests can be sustained. But I think one of the key elements of this new Tiger Reserve is a new protected area is that it can be managed according to international best practices in the modern protected area era. And among these things is a priority on community participation, consultation, and collaborative approaches, which we hope to demonstrate in the Tiger Reserve. There's 2 more bits to it. Sustainable tourism. We are planning to work with those communities and elaborating sustainable tourism, and also assist them in understanding how to better manage human-wildlife conflict and lead to coexistence. So I just have one thing more to say. Much has been said about species conservation and the loss of biodiversity. I also want us to try to understand the Upper Tembeling River as a cultural landscape. Those communities are not new. They actually have been present in the most isolated part of Peninsular Malaysia for hundreds of years, right? And they live there through resilience and persistence and legacy and a love for their landscape. To lose these communities from this landscape, we would be poorer. And so I think the thing to bear in mind is that being isolated from people has been a disadvantage. I mean, from the centers of cities and money has been a disadvantage to these communities. It's not an easy thing to live in the interior. But what if you could turn that around and make that an advantage? The creation of the Tiger Reserve puts these communities in the spotlight. It puts access to amenities, resources, and investment in their development as a priority. And so if this model of being able to capitalize on undisturbed, pristine natural assets can be replicated elsewhere in Malaysia, this would be one of the achievements of this Tiger Reserve. The map is up. Oh, it's not the map that I wanted, but it's okay. I think I want us to show that Abdullah always likes to point out, he calls the triangle, right? There is the communities live in a triangle, which is Taman Negara on the left-hand side, and the new Tiger Reserve on the right-hand side, right? And those communities are a tiger landscape, right? And if we can find a way that actually improves the connectivity for all wildlife in the Tiger Reserve.
Thank you, Justine. And again, the complexity you can see here, it's not only about species conservation, it's also not even, this morning we heard about a landscape approach, widening that, but this is also a living landscape approach, which understanding that there has been a history of societies and communities living within the area. Okay, let's go into tiger protection itself. We heard this morning a bit about the dangers of poaching, of illegal wildlife trade as well. But perhaps drilling a bit deeper in your role, YE, as an NGO, you don't really have any enforcement authority. So, how do you execute your role within the Tiger Reserve?
Thank you, Dr. Alizan. Good afternoon, everyone. So I think we also heard this morning how we all have a role to play, and I strongly believe in that. And so, as an NGO, Panthera, we've been very fortunate that we have been commissioned by the Majlis Biodiversity Pahang to provide the support. The supporting role that we play is to the law enforcement agencies to help protect, be there before, because the park is so new, the Tiger Reserve is so new, so to be there to help maintain vigilance. So we have a team of patrollers. They come from local communities. They come from all over Malaysia, and we're there to at least be the eyes and ears for the time being, and we're helping to build capacity with their experiences. They need to gain experience, and we need to learn about this landscape, because although yes, tigers cover huge landscapes and they move about, but from what we understand, there are also very unique list of threat types. So one of the other things that we do in this role is to help conduct threat analyses, understand the different threat types, the problem types, and start profiling them. And we dig really deep into how poaching patterns work, or how these syndicates operate, or how even they move in the forest. Because if we want to learn how to find them, or how to prevent them from coming in, we need to really understand them. And so that's kind of like a unique role that we're playing at the moment. Because ultimately we want to see where the gaps are, and we try to fill those gaps. We try to plug the holes, because we all heard today that we are running out of time, and we want to stop the bleed. So we are there to start the work on the ground and provide this assistance, and in the hopes that, yes, one day this park will be able to run in a full capacity. And by that I also mean a strong system, because aside from the people, there also needs to be a strong system that make things work, because again, we all have our roles to play, but we each bring different things to the table, right? So how do we make this whole partnership work, this whole collaboration work? We also dig into that and help to build a system that works for for all sectors, really. It's not just the NGOs that are doing the work. There's already a lot of political will, right, from the government agencies to see this come true, to see our tigers come back. So that's where we are. The role that Panthera plays, specifically at the Tiger Reserve, is to help identify what works. And lastly, also, we help to evaluate how does what works and how it works, so that we can continue doing the right things in the right way. And if and when this expands, or the Tiger Reserve is huge, but I think there's also always potential for other similar protected areas, and then we have a working system that we can replicate in the future. So,
just a brief follow-up on that.
Sure.
In terms of the threat analysis, there's a lot of research work that you're undertaking as well.
Yeah.
We've heard this morning about using big data and so on and so forth. So is that something that you talk as well and use within the context?
That's right. Yeah. It's because we need to acknowledge that if we want to save and recover tigers, we can't just only study the tigers. We have to understand their prey, what is it they need, what are the obstacles that are currently in the way, right, of the tiger recovery, and if it's poaching, what kind of poaching is happening, and how do we remove this threat from the path of the tiger, right? I think is it Oyen and Rimau's path, right? They want to see, head towards this really clear path. And so this is our job. I think we're here together to see what else is in underplay. So yeah, not just studying tigers, but also the threats that they face. So also understanding people and patterns, because poachers aren't there because they, I mean, we want to dig deeper than just they're there because they need subsistence. We want to understand what are the facilitating factors, how do we alter these environments that can benefit both people and wildlife. Yeah.
Thanks, Wai. And you brought up, it's a good segue into the next question for Dr. John Payne. From this morning's video, from yourself as well, you've highlighted the importance of the prey availability itself. So, Doctor, you've worked for a long time in this area. Can you discuss some of the approaches for prey protection and enrichment, and why is this generally important, and what are some of those approaches that have been implemented?
Thanks, Amizan. It's a long time, so before I say what my little NGO's role in the bigger picture is, I want to outline two things by way of background explanation. So one is, I've been around in Malaysia almost 50, coming up to 50 years, and my first few years were as a student in Pahang, as it happened, as a wildlife biologist. And a big part of my working life in Malaysia, mainly in Sabah as a wildlife biologist, was to do with the so-called Sumatran rhinoceros, which I like to call the hairy rhinoceros. Many of you may know of this thing. It's probably the most endangered species in the world, bar none now. And I guess from 1980 to 2020, one way or another, I was very much involved in Sumatran rhinos in Sabah and Indonesia. And the species became extinct finally in Malaysia in 2019, when the last ones died. And why I'm raising that is a couple of things. So number one is, the Sumatran rhino is eerily like the Malayan tiger, in the sense that it's an essentially solitary rainforest species living at low density. It's not like a herd-dwelling animal. And so there's some similarities as a large solitary rainforest-dwelling animal with the Malayan tiger. And because time doesn't permit, I'm just going to summarize the hairy rhino, Sumatran rhino story as I see it. And in brief summary, one was things were left far too late. People were talking about Sumatran rhino being nearly extinct literally 100 years ago. So that was one thing. Don't wait till things are too late. Another thing was, and you still see this, if you look on internet, you still see the Sumatran rhino is endangered by poaching and habitat loss. And frankly, when I came onto the scene in the 1980s, that was no longer the case. The numbers were so low that whether there was poaching or not didn't really make much difference. And there's plenty of habitat. And again, in summary, amongst the problems were female rhinos, most of them developed reproductive pathology when they were quite young. And the only way was to address that, bring them into captivity, and apply assisted reproductive technology to boost their birth rate. I'm saying this because this does not yet apply to the Malayan tiger, but to tell you the perceived wisdom of poaching and habitat loss is not necessarily the full story. One needs to look at the key points. Anyway, moving forward. So when the last Sumatran rhinos died in Malaysia in 2019, my little NGO, Borneo Rhino Alliance, BORA, we still existed, and we wondered what we could do as a small NGO, less than 20 people based in Sabah, to learn some of the lessons from that Sumatran rhino story for other rare Malaysian wildlife. And we started in 2019 planting wild fruit trees for orangutans in oil palm plantations. And then we realized that one of the issues in Sabah, as it is here, is elephants, how to manage elephants. And the issue with elephants, as many of you will know, is actually they're not particularly a rainforest animal, elephants. But since oil palm came onto the scene, and this ice is nothing to do with an anti-oil palm rant at all. Oil palm came along, and since then, the last 40, 50 years, elephants in Malaysia are now addicted to oil palm. Baby elephants learn from their mother they need to go out of the forest and eat oil palm. So we started in 2021 planting grass for elephants. The good thing about grass is that if animals eat it, it grows back again. That's the only kind of plant that does that. Everything else, if elephants eat it, it will die. Grass grows back up again. So that was 2021, and sort of in parallel, that set us thinking with something else. Malaysia has 2 wild cattle species, the Selangor Banting and Sabah. And they're a bit different. They're very, very rare. They don't come out into oil palm. They live in very remote forests, and their limiting factor, you might have guessed, is grass. There's no grass for a wild cow in rainforest, so we started planting grass 2021. And what we found is the birth rate of these wild banting, wild cattle, has gone up 4-fold since we put in grass. It could be luck, but our view is that the nutrition available to the mother cattle is so much better that they can breed once per year rather than every 3 or 4 years, which they were.
Thank you. I'm afraid you have to wrap up.
I see that too, thank you. So, you've got the gist. So our role in the Tiger Reserve is, and it's still very early and experimental, is to plant small grasslands, small pastures with added minerals, supplementary minerals. And the idea is to build up the wild samba deer, rooster population, as tiger prey. I'll leave it at that, thank you.
Thank you. Again, highlighting the importance of breathability. I'd like to also acknowledge the presence of His Royal Highness, Count Prince of Pahang. Welcome back, His Royal Highness, to the panel session. Last but certainly not least, I would like to go to Dylan from NBS. Again, managing this part is very complex. It requires cutting-edge approaches. It requires up-to-date park management approaches. Can you explain a bit some of the critical work that the NBS has been doing within the Royal Tiger Reserve?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm from NBS. We're a very small company with some people with very special skills sitting in the back making some noise just now. Now, in the Tiger Reserve, our job is mainly the dirty work, which is, in summary, 3 things. Number 1, we help EMS and PTNP to set up some of the key processes and documentation that is required for a fully functional protected area. Number 2, we're here to support the rest of our team with different things that we can do, simple things and a bit more technical things as well. But overall, at the end of the 2 years, what we want to do is learn as much as we can about the landscape from a few things that we do ourselves, plus from what our partners have learned, in order to write a management plan for the Tiger Reserve, which I think would probably be a management plan for the phase 2 as well. So I just want to give an example, because I think it's important, that although we are mandated to work inside the boundaries of the Tiger Reserve, it's very important that our footprint, our conservation footprint, affects the area around us, the larger landscape. I brought a pointer. Just want to point something out from there. Anyway, so you can tell the Tiger Reserve boundary, and to the west, most of the western boundary, as I pointed out, is bordering oil palm plantation. The biggest one is called Ladang Hulu Malay, which is probably more than half of the western boundary. Now, why this is important? We found signs of tigers in that plantation, not just one time, quite often. The only salt lick in the entire landscape that we know of is inside that plantation. The main access road. The main access road that we use, that the poachers use to enter the Tiger Reserve, runs through the plantation. And that access road there's no security, it's free for all. And so, so it's very important for us as managers of Tiger Reserve to work with our neighbors to make the landscape better. So that's one of the things that we're going to do. On the eastern side as well, some of you may know that there was a plan for a road to run through the Tiger Reserve. And for the Pahang side now, the road has been stopped. But on the Terengganu side, there's still a road, a 12-kilometer road from the nearest kampong, which was supposed to go right to the border of the Tiger Reserve. And because we stopped it on the Pahang side, so on the Terengganu side, they have half the road. So it's only going to go 6 kilometers to the middle of nowhere. It stopped in the forest. So what this actually means is although the road only goes halfway, it actually now enables conversion of that forest, which is state land forest, to plantation. So previously the landowners who had land deep in the forest, very hard to turn it into plantation because there's no access. So now with the road, 6 kilometers of road, it comes to their doorstep. They can convert it to plantation if so wish. So through the mandate that we have for the Tiger Reserve, we want to try to engage with these people to see what we can do in the next state as well. So I think that's my main point. We want to try to work outside of our specific area as well.
Thank you, Dylan. You said it was dirty work. I don't think it's dirty work at all, but perhaps more of the invisible work that is required for such an ambitious endeavor. So we have a very short time, but just very quickly, as we to close off this panel session as well, can I ask each speaker in reverse order to highlight what do they think as the way forward? The most critical enabler. Just name one critical enabler as the way forward. I think again we've seen all the panelists share what they are currently doing. Incredible job. Kudos to all of you. But what is next? What is the way forward? What is the critical enabler to really achieve some of the ambitious goals that we have within the Tiger Reserve? Please, Dylan first. Dr. John, YE, Justin, and then Dr. Shah, you have the last word.
Thank you. I'd just like to say, although this is more protected areas is great and we need more, but it's a human thing, right? We draw a line on a map and say this is your reserve. You know that, I know that, the tigers don't know that. Right? Tigers come and go as they please. Times the tigers are individuals are recorded in Terengganu, they move to Pahang, from Pahang they move to Perak, they move wherever they like, right? So going back to I think what was said this morning a couple of times, right? Pahang has the largest forest in Peninsular Malaysia. I think it's about 1.5 billion hectares, the whole of the Pahang's forest management. Now, if we change our mindset, that we can do tiger conservation, we can grow food for herbivores in production forests, where logging is carried out, right? Then we are utilizing the whole potential of Pahang, right? Thank you very much.
Dr. John?
I would like to encourage government, NGOs, everyone alike, to try and focus their messaging on things I as a wildlife biologist think are the two key things. One is reducing the premature death rate of wild tigers, poaching, if I know about that. The other one I just mentioned. If you want to sustain tigers long-term, breeding population, reduce the death rate and increase their nutrition so the numbers can build up, crucially where you want them to be, not anywhere else. But I want to emphasize the messaging. Every day we see messages on tigers, right? But there's so many confusing things, and those two key points I think really should be highlighted, and I exhort everyone to think of that. Thank you.
Thank you. YE?
Maybe a recap from my side would be this collaboration ultimately. We all have our role to play, and I think this morning, again and again, we said, you know, this is a galvanizing movement, and it's very heartening to see that. But I would say a multidisciplinary approach, but also a very focused approach to tackle this task at hand, but also with very strong leadership, and I think we're seeing that here today. Thank you.
16 seconds. Okay, what does success look like for me, for the communities in the Hulutumeling to feel a strong sense of belonging and ownership of the tiger reserve outcomes and the landscape in general? They should be one. The objectives and achievements achieved together, which in tandem with socioeconomic development opportunities for those communities. Yeah, that was the main thing. And in order to do that, we need to forge trust between those communities and the parties responsible for working with them. And ultimately, yeah, I mean, just create a new way of doing things.
Thank you, Jacinta. Natasha, you have the last word.
Okay, 1 minute. So we have proven to a certain extent that collaboration is the way forward. So with this Tiger Summit, one of the hopes is that we take this collaboration to the next level. Next level meaning all of you out there. Anybody that has expertise, whether local, more so international, please come forward. Join us in this fight to save the Malayan tiger. And with that, I would say thank you to state government, Tuanku, for your strong support. And I think we have an icon, and this is an opportunity for us to really do something with good support from government agencies, including Datuk Kade, the Wildlife Department. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I have talked them up. But obviously the key thing here is collaboration, collaboration, and collaboration. It takes a village to raise a child, but it takes much more to raise the number of tigers. And I think again we've seen the distinct expertise within this panel, but as Shah mentioned, we need everyone, we need all of you, whether it is in terms of policies, whether in terms of specific expertise, to play their part within the Royal Tiger Reserve.
For collaborative work that's been put in for the Al-Sultan Abdullah Royal Tiger Reserve. Your Royal Highness, ladies and gentlemen, moving on, we will be having two speakers to cover the important theme of national and international lessons in tiger protection and conservation. Please join me in welcoming Mr. LANGSUNG, the Executive Director of Pertubuhan Pelindung Alam Malaysia.
Your Royal Highness, Tuanku, and everyone. Today, I'll be talking about the Community Ranger program we have with Wildlife Department, Beritan. First of all, I give a bit of a historical link to this particular Community Rangers program. Now, in National Tiger Surveys, in 2017 and 2020, we have been tasked to assist the National Tiger Survey by Beritan. So the yellow area are those that we actually supposed to cover. And the area cover about 16,000 square kilometers. And involving setting up camera trap, animal survey, animal site survey, DNA collection, and human activity records. It's a difficult job because the area that we went to, we surveyed, are mostly the area that have never been surveyed before. No research has been done in those areas, and especially in the large scale like this. So the terrain is harsh, and some of the logging roads, the interior forest, or the interior village that we have to go through, and involving some of the really nasty forest road, the Jalan Balak. and also some of the river system that our rangers just basically have to build a bucket to actually cross the river with their motorbike. And we have a joke about going through all these really muddy and off-road area. So you go in with one car, which is the white one, and when you come out, you get two cars. You got the other one, which is the brown one. So actually the same car, but it's just covered with mud. So it just shows that how harsh the terrains are. And in some of the area we use motorbike, and we even build our own the tire change, the metal change to actually, so that we can actually go through the forest much easier. No matter what, by hook by crook, the country needs this survey, and we were tasked to do the whole area. Those blue dots are the camera trap station that has been